Hello and welcome to this introductory video on the English and Welsh legal system with Ryan Murphy. This video is to introduce you to some of the resources that you might find helpful and useful in your study of the English legal system. And in particular, I'm going to highlight some of the features of the textbook and the English legal system and of the website that accompanies that textbook, and to make you think about what the study of the legal system of England and Wales might involve. So the first thing to say is welcome. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this introductory video, and also for using the textbook and the website that accompanies it. So let's have a little bit of a think about some of the stereotypes that go along with the study of the English and Welsh legal system. What preconceptions do people have about the usefulness of studying the English and Welsh legal system, particularly if it's part of a package of studies, say, leading to a law degree, where you will study a number of substantive legal subjects, like contract, tort, property, public law, etc., etc. What is the use, what is the utility of learning about the legal system that underpins that substantive law? Well, the first thing that students often feel about the legal system of England and Wales as a topic of study is that it's somehow there just to fill up your time, that it's there as a very basic, very introductory topic. And I would suggest that that's a flawed thinking around the legal system, the study of the legal system of England and Wales. And that's because the proper functioning of the legal system underpins all of the other legal subjects that you would study: the law of contract, the law of tort, how those laws are made, how those laws are enforced, how those laws are interpreted, how those laws are changed. All of those things can only happen within the context of a legal system. The other thing that we often find, those of us who teach law at university, is that students come with already an understanding of the legal system, which is great. And that can be because they have prior work experience with a legal professional, such as a solicitor or barrister, that they may have even studied the English legal system at sixth form or college in the form of an A-level in law. And there is a risk that it's seen as just repetition of that very basic understanding of the legal system that you will have gained through earlier study. And I would like to assure you that the legal system, as taught at university, is much, much, much more complex. It's much more involved, and it's about also you developing those legal reasoning and legal practice skills through the vehicle of study of the legal system of England and Wales. The other thing that you might find is that the assessment package for a module, say, on the English legal system is very, very different to the assessment package on some of your other modules. And sometimes it's seen as English legal system can be assessed in a variety of ways, sometimes through blogs, through short form answers, through coursework, through extended answers, through a portfolio. And just because the form of your assessment might not be the same as your other modules doesn't mean that you should spend less time on it. It shouldn't mean that it's less rewarding, and it shouldn't provide you with any fewer opportunities to really develop some of your critical thinking skills, some of your skills of analysis, some of your skills of communication. A module on the English legal system can really open up a whole suite of skills and experiences for you. The other thing that varies quite considerably between law school in the teaching of English legal system is exactly how the module is presented. And so some present English legal system as a term one, semester one, first year module. So it's short and fat. It takes place over a couple of months. It's intended to give you an overview of some of the mechanisms of the study of the English and Welsh legal system. Other modules take a different view. They adopt a long, thin approach, which is taught over the entirety of a single year, for example, or even in some cases, taught in successive years of study. And The purpose of me raising this to you is that legal system skills is probably the module that has the most diverse range of delivery options. Equally, it could be taught as a very, very intensive 3 or 4 week type study right at the start of your degree. And the reason I'm talking with you about this is because the textbook is intended to cover all of those eventualities. And indeed, the supporting materials on the website are intended to support whatever method of delivery your law school has opted for in terms of delivering you education on the legal system of England and Wales. The textbook and the website are there to help you, no matter whether you will be studying the English and Welsh legal system for a very short period, for an extended period of a couple of months, or indeed over an entire year. Those are some of the initial questions that people have about the study of the English and Welsh legal system. What I wanted to very briefly talk to you about now is just how engaging and rewarding study of the legal system can be. You can really get to grips with the nuts and bolts of how law is made, why law is the way it is, and the influences, the non-legal, the legal influences on the development of the law. And getting that really good grounding in the legal system of England and Wales will help to knit together the various different subjects that you might study later on in your degree or other educational program. So the idea is that no matter which subject you go on to study, whether it's contract, whether it's tort, whether it's crime, whether it's property, whether it's equity, whether it's land, whether it's one of the traditional elective subjects like intellectual property or employment law, one common grounding feature will be how does the legal system deal with the particular challenges that are raised by different subject areas. So some of the challenges raised by the law of contract, primarily a common law subject, will be very different to some of the challenges that are raised by other subjects which have a stronger statutory footing. And the common feature of all of the substantive study of law is that it is grounded, operates through the legal system. So by getting a really solid understanding of the legal system, you not only have an understanding of different sources of law and how it was made, but also of how that plays into the particular challenges that arise from particular substantive areas of law. That it can tell you a great deal about the world around you. It is formative in that way. It can inform you about the legal heritage and culture in which you are studying. And so you will get a greater understanding of the cultural importance of law, of legal rules, and how the society from which legal rules arise, so here we talk about the law of England and Wales, how the history of that jurisdiction really informs the shape and flavour of its legal system. That the other great advantage of studying and learning about the legal system of England and Wales is that you will study a diverse range of topics, whether that's from more straightforward things like sources of law, to how law is made and how it interacts with politics, to aspects of procedure, like how do you bring a claim in the county court, or how the legal system interacts with other jurisdictions. How does it interact with its international neighbours? How does it interact with the other jurisdictions that operate within the United Kingdom? That you'll learn a lot about people, whether that's the judiciary and how they go about interpreting the law, whether it's about legal professions, whether it's about how the legal system reacts to and responds to the various challenges thrown at it by modern life. For example, at the moment, the legal system is grappling with the coronavirus pandemic that swept the world in March of 2020. And how does the legal system facilitate a government response to that? How does it put the proper boundaries on the sorts of things that a government can do at a time of crisis? All of those things and more you'll learn about in a module on the English legal system. It also can be a really challenging module because it tends to come, or challenging subject area, because it tends to come quite early on in your study of law, when you're just finding your feet, coming to grips with finding a case, finding a statute, finding a statutory instrument, and then reading and understanding those. coming to terms with new skills that are asked of you from a law school, such as the application of rules to facts, the so-called problem question, or reading new academic sources. And on top of that, you will have to learn through the lens, learn about those things and how to do those things through the lens of the legal system. And so a module on, far from being easy, a module on the legal system in England and Wales can be amongst the most challenging that you tackle, because you are doing so at a time when you are only just developing the tools, the skills, the competencies to be able to deal with legal materials. So how can the materials that I've produced and provided along with my co-author Francis Burton, how can they help you to, how can they support you in your legal education? So let's start with the textbook. It's split broadly into 4 parts. The first talks about the sources of law and institutions of the lawmaking. So the very sort of bare bones of an understanding of the legal system. So what are the sources of law? And what are the institutions that make that law? And you could almost read those chapters in part 1 together as a basic grounding in the architecture of the legal system of England and Wales. The second part focuses much more on statutory law, on statute, on Acts of Parliament, statutory instruments, secondary legislation, how those are made, particularly the processes they go through, and what do the processes tell us about the product, what do they tell us about the law that comes out of the other end. And quite crucially, once you have that law, how do courts and judges go about interpreting that law? So that's part 2. Part 3 will cover in more detail the court structure, the judiciary, the personnel of the legal system, including lawyers, the role of solicitors, barristers, legal executive, and others in the administration of justice. And built within that, baked within part 3 is essentially a look at the judicial system, the operation and contribution that the judicial legal order provides to the English and Welsh legal system. And then finally, a very short part 4 is the international influences on the legal system. And so the study of a legal system can often be fairly inward looking to the sources, influences, and institutions that rest within that legal system. But we must remember that legal systems interact with each other. And part 4 is to start to get you to think of the legal system of England and Wales not as some isolated sole jurisdiction, but how does it interact with, interplay with, be influenced by, and give influence over other legal jurisdictions. And then the website. So the website is intended to accompany the book, and indeed the book is intended to accompany the website. And so the idea is that the book gives you the framework, and the website starts to promote some even further deeper thinking about particular aspects as a gateway, as a vehicle for exploring, in particular, the development of your legal skills. So the website in particular is geared towards making you think more about the legal system and to do things with the information given, whether that's apply a statute or a piece of secondary law, the working time regulations, to a given situation. So its purpose, as I say, is to provoke questions. The purpose of the website is not to give you more answers. It's not to give you more knowledge. It's not to give you that much greater understanding. It's there to test that knowledge and understanding and to get you to do more with that knowledge and understanding, to apply it, to evaluate it, to analyze it, to synthesize it. And so what you might find as you read the website is that you're left with more questions than you've been given answers, and that is intentional. Because being an independent learner is a core aspect of success on a law degree. Now, there are a series of podcasts, so if you're not bored with the sound of my voice by the end of this video, you can look at my treatment or my discussion of other aspects of the legal system of England and Wales. And those can be quite broad and general things like the features of a statute, or they can be quite particular things like how does a legal system respond to emergencies. And the purpose behind those podcasts is to bring you some fresh information in a different sort of way, but also to get you to think about some of those core themes, some of those core issues. There are also some resources. So there are some activities that you can undertake to test your understanding, to further your understanding, and to apply your understanding to new areas. Some of those rely upon publicly available documents like legislation and cases. Others will require you to have access to legal databases so that, for example, you can read journal articles. But there is a mix of resources on there, things that are quite short, things that are intended to get you applying the law, and others that are to get you analysing or thinking about the law in a deeper way, and indeed thinking about, in some instances, law reform. And so those are the main features of the book and the website. And what I would encourage you to do is to provide me with some feedback. So whether that's the things that you really like about the book and the website, the things that you think could be improved about the book and the website, and the things you really, really don't like. And the purpose is to comment on the resources, to comment on the book, to comment on the website, to comment on anything you like, including perhaps the things that you found really difficult about learning about the legal system of England and Wales. And I've put my website, my email address on the screen now, so it's ryan.murphy@swansea.ac.uk. And what I would like you to do, if you feel so inclined, is to provide me with some direct feedback, because through that direct feedback, I can improve the resources, I can provide resources that you think would be useful. And so I've provided the things that I think would be of use to those who are new to the study of law and who are looking to understand more about the legal system of England and Wales. But equally, I'd be really keen to hear from you about what else I can do to help support your learning. And really, that's all for now. As I say, there are lots more podcasts if you're not sick of the sound of my voice. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your willingness to look at the materials provided. And I wish you all the very best in your endeavours as you tackle the challenges and feel the rewards of the legal system of England and Wales. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Goodbye.